Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the news channel of Ancestor News and Broadcasting on YouTube. Here, we share the latest and hottest issues that domestic and international media are concerned about. And here are some of the headlines. In a recent press conference in the U.S. Department of Defense, U.S. President Donald Trump was asked about a secret mission carried out by North Korea's special mission in 2019. In response, Trump said, "I don't know anything about that mission. This is the first time I've heard of it." Earlier, the New York Times published an article revealing that the SKILD Team 6 was sent to North Korea on a winter night in early 2019 to carry out a mission to set up North Korean leader Kim Jong-un's listening devices. However, the above mission failed when the SKILD soldiers suddenly intercepted a North Korean civilian ship as they approached the coast of the country. The special mission was then launched into the civilian ship. An U.S. official named after New York Times said the SKILD soldiers carried out a number of measures to ensure that the dead could not resurface and then abandoned the mission to set up listening devices. The day after September 9, Illinois Governor J. Robert Frisker accused U.S. President Donald Trump of wanting to start a war with Chicago after he said it would make the city understand the reason why the Pentagon is called the War Department. Trump wrote on social media, "Chicago is about to understand the reason why the War Department is called that. Chicago is a suburb of Illinois." A day earlier, Trump signed an order to change the name of the U.S. Department of Defense to the War Department. The move is said to be a demonstration of the U.S.'s strong image and the military's readiness to fight. Speaking of Trump's move, Frisker wrote on social media that the U.S. president is threatening to start a war with a U.S. city. "This is not a joke and is not normal." He stressed that Chicago would not be threatened. Also on September 6, those who opposed Trump took to the streets of Chicago to demonstrate, using slogans such as "No Trump, no military." When they passed the Trump Tower in Chicago, the protest group even had a sign aimed at this project. Currently, President Trump is looking to deploy National Guard forces to cities by Democratic leaders, including Chicago, where he accused the local government of not being able to control criminals. Chicago recorded 573 killings in 2024, much higher than 377 in New York and 268 in Los Angeles. Earlier, Mr. Trump sent National Guard troops and federal agents from Los Angeles to Washington. The move sparked many protests and legal challenges. Critics said it was an act of unnecessary force. Meanwhile, in Washington on September 6, thousands of people marched in the city center demanding federal forces to end the siege. In Los Angeles, local authorities voiced opposition to violent measures used by ICE to arrest immigrants on the street. In addition to Chicago, President Trump also threatened to send federal forces to Baltimore and New Orleans to deal with criminals and illegal immigrants. On September 6, the World Guard Union said that 88 agencies around the world had suspended or partially suspended U.S. military services due to President Donald Trump's taxes. According to the AFP, a series of agencies in Australia, Britain, France, Germany, Italy, India, and Japan will not receive and handle most of the documents sent to the U.S. The U.S. said 88 agencies around the world had announced to the U.S. that they had suspended or partially suspended all U.S. military services until a solution was found. The 88 agencies, from 78 member states including 9 other territories including Macau and the Philippines, were suspended after President Donald Trump announced at the end of July that he would exempt small business packages from entering the U.S. from August 29. The U.S. said that the amount of documents sent to the U.S. had decreased by 81% on August 29 compared to the previous week. This is one of the lowest decreases ever recorded. U.S. Customs and Border Protection has said That 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 U.S. President Donald Trump said the U.S. military had attacked a Washington. Instead of putting priority on dealing with China and Russia, as has been the case for many years, the plan this time is to strengthen territorial security and strengthen presence in the global West. This is seen as a step forward from previous governments, both the Democrats and the Republicans, who have repeatedly emphasized that China is the number one strategic opponent. In the first term, President Donald Trump saw Beijing as the biggest challenge to U.S. national security, but the new direction is said to be more focused on domestic issues. Politico source quoted an official as saying that this would be a major change for the U.S. and its allies in many continents. Pledges that have long been taken for granted by Washington are now being questioned. In fact, part of the change has been made. The Pentagon has dispatched thousands of soldiers of the National Guard to support the French Army in Los Angeles and Washington. At the same time, the U.S. deployed many F-35 fighter jets and fighters to the Caribbean to block drug and terrorist flow. Last week, the U.S. military was said to have carried out an attack, killing 11 members of Venezuela's Chandra Aragua gang in the international waters. In addition, a region that has been militarized has been established along the southern border with Mexico, allowing the military to participate in the detention of civilians, a work that is within the jurisdiction of the police force. These steps are considered evidence of the U.S. military's expansionary trend in domestic security. If approved, the new strategy will reverse the direction of the 2018 NDS, which focuses on China. The document then emphasized that China and Russia want to reform the world according to their own political model. However, according to experts, the new plan is not entirely in line with the tough view that President Trump still expressed in his speeches on Beijing. The person in charge of the strategic plan is Enbridge Colby, the chief of the Pentagon's policy committee, and the person who played an important role in the 2018 NDS. Colby was known as a person with a tough view on China, but now he supports a view that focuses more on domestic security, in line with the approach of Vice President James David Vance's independent policy. Along with the NDS, the U.S. Department of Defense is also preparing to announce two other reports, including the Global Forces Administration and the Missile Defense System survey. The three documents all have in common that they encourage allies to strengthen their self-defense capabilities while the U.S. concentrates its forces in the domestic region. The change in direction has caused concern among European allies. According to Politico, the Baltic Security Initiative, which provides hundreds of millions of dollars a year to Latvia, Lithuania, and Estonia to increase defense capabilities, is facing a risk of being cut short. The support has previously helped Baltic countries speed up their arms purchases, including the Himalayan system produced by the U.S. Currently, there are about 80,000 U.S. troops stationed in Europe. However, many countries are concerned that this number will decrease in the coming years, depending on political decisions from Washington. In a recent visit by the Polish president to the White House, Mr. Trump affirmed that he would not withdraw troops from Poland or even consider increasing presence, while ignoring the ability to adjust forces in other countries in the region. The analyst said that if a new strategy is officially approved, it will mark a fundamental change in the U.S. defense policy. Washington can focus more on territorial defense, but at the same time, it worries its allies about the long-term commitment to global security. On September 6, the Global Times reported that Canadian and Australian warships entered the Taiwan Strait. just one day after the Chinese military accused the two countries of being tense during exercises in the South China Sea. The Canadian warship Vindicubek and the Australian frigate Brisbane were the two warships that crossed the Taiwan Strait on September 5. The operation is currently being closely monitored by the People's Liberation Army of China. According to the Global Times, the PLA has maintained full surveillance and monitoring throughout the operation, and the situation is completely under control. Earlier, Admiral Wyatt Sauter, spokesman for the United Nations War Command, said that Vindicubek is currently being deployed in the Horizon mission, a full-fledged military mission of the Canadian military to promote peace and stability, to support the international system based on international law in the Indo-Pacific region. According to CCTV News, the Vindicubek warship operated off the coast of the Philippines in the framework of the 10th Multilateral Maritime Cooperation Exercise MMRCA, between the Navy and Air Force of the Philippines, Australia, Canada, and the United States. The move is aimed at demonstrating a strong defense partnership between the four countries and a joint commitment to promote maritime security and regional stability. However, this move has received strong criticism from China. Dian Xuanli, spokesman for the South China Sea Command of the PLA, said that any attempt to cause trouble in the South China Sea and create tension would certainly fail. China will maintain a high alert to protect the territorial sovereignty and maritime rights of the country.